In August 2015, the Slovenian avant-garde band Laibach became the first ever Western rock group to play in North Korea. The event was surreal. Instead of rowdy fans or casual concert-goers, the audience was a hand-picked assembly of Pyongyang's model citizens, seated politely in a grand theatre. Laibach's setlist included synth-heavy covers from The Sound of Music, and even a rendition of the Korean folk anthem Arirang. The crowd listened in calm silence, clapping on cue under giant portraits of Kim Il-sung and Kim Jong-il. North Korea's state media later praised the band for its peculiar singing, rich voice, and skilled rendition of classic songs. A review delivered with the enthusiasm one might use for a particularly adept kindergarten choir. This bizarre scene encapsulated the Kim regime's approach to music. Even a foreign industrial rock band's concert was orchestrated as a dutiful celebration of state ideology. In the Kimdom, bringing in an outsider rock group to mark the 70th anniversary of Korea's liberation from Japan was perfectly normal. After all, rock's spirit is to rebel, and the DPRK's forever mission was to revolt. So, in the Supreme Leader's eyes, North Korea and rock and roll might just share a kindred spirit. North Korea's musical culture is unlike any other. This is a country with girl groups who sing odes to nuclear missiles, operas that climax with tractors ablaze on stage, and pop ballads that repeat the dear leader's name until the violins nearly collapse from exhaustion. Here, music isn't art for art's sake. It's state policy, choreography, and sometimes even punishment. From the revolutionary operas conceived by Kim Il-sung to the light synth dance tracks of Kim Jong-un's Moran Bong band, every note carries a message of loyalty, patriotism, and the Juche ideology. In this episode, we explore North Korea's strange musical universe, from revolutionary operas to Juche synth-pop. In the Kimdom, music serves a higher purpose. It's propaganda with a melody, and loyalty sung in perfect harmony. Buckle up, let's dig in. Long before Laibach ever set foot in Pyongyang and North Korea had anything resembling pop music, the great leader Kim Il-sung dictated the country's entire musical universe. In the early decades, music had one simple job: glorify the revolution and deify the Kims. Any notion of art as personal expression was subordinated to this propagandist mission. And the grandest vehicle for that mission was the revolutionary opera. Inspired by Maoist China's model operas in the 1960s, North Korean revolutionary operas were lavish, Marxist reinterpretations of musical theatre. The country produced 5 state-sanctioned operas, which became the canonical works of the era: Sea of Blood, The Flower Girl, Tello the Forest, A True Daughter of the Party, and The Song of Mount Kumgang. If you've watched our film episodes, these titles should sound oddly familiar. It's because many of the early DPRK's films actually began life as operas before being adapted for the silver screen. For example, Sea of Blood, which North Korean law claims was written by Kim Il-sung himself during the anti-Japanese resistance, premiered on stage at the Pyongyang Grand Theatre in 1971. The great leader personally crafted this epic while fighting Japanese occupiers, making it quite literally the template for all revolutionary operas. These operas have been performed thousands of times, as if each repeat performance might churn out another batch of perfectly loyal citizens. What defines a North Korean revolutionary opera? Think Maximalist patriotism meets socialist realism, with a heavy dose of hero worship. There are stirring orchestral scores and mass choruses belting out odes to the motherland and the leader. Storylines follow humble, virtuous peasants or soldiers who triumph through their faith in the revolution. And always, always, the ultimate savior or guiding light is the great leader. Even when he's not a character on stage, his portrait or his unseen presence usually provides the resolution. By the 70s, Kim Il-sung's heir, Kim Jong-il, took charge of cultural policy and codified the rules of this art form. In his treatise on the art of opera, Kim Jong-il laid out that every song must uplift socialist values and glorify the leader, the party, the working people, and the spirit of Juche. If a love story appeared, it was only acceptable if the romance ultimately served the revolution. Western influences were strictly forbidden. No jazzy show tunes or Broadway flair here. From a critic's perspective, magical realism was seemingly more accepted here in Pyongyang than in Latin America. Through the 1970s, these operas and related mass songs set the tone for North Korea's musical propaganda. Every morning, citizens might awake to the state radio, playing rousing revolutionary marches. Song of General Kim Il-sung, an anthem praising the elder Kim's guerrilla legend, was essentially the country's second national anthem, omnipresent at rallies and often sung by crowds at sunrise as a show of devotion. Large-scale performances often incorporated revolutionary songs and operatic themes, reinforcing the mythology of the revolution in both sight and sound. Under Kim Il-sung's rule, music was a weapon of class struggle and nation-building, a tool to instill socialist fervor and idolize the leadership. Rolling into the 80s, a North Korean could hum from memory dozens of these state-approved tunes, from operatic arias to militant marches, all composed under party guidance. Yet, as the world and musical trends changed, even the DPRK's rigid soundscape had to evolve, and that evolution came under the direction of Kim Il-sung's successor, Kim Jong-il. Into the 1980s, tastes in music were shifting elsewhere in the world. Synthesizers, disco, and rock guitars dominated the charts. Kim Jong-il, ever the micromanager of North Korean art and culture, recognized that the soundtrack of loyalty needed an update. Thus began North Korea's experiment with light music, a state-sanctioned fusion of Western-style pop elements with socialist content. Kim Jong-il, possibly tapping his feet in private to some forbidden Japanese city pop, or noticing the catchy melodies coming from Western broadcasts, which he officially denounced, decides to create a North Korean answer to jazz and pop. Of course, this new music would remain ideologically pure. The lyrics still praised the party, the working masses, and the Kim family. You know it. But the packaging would be fresher, with drum kits, electric guitars, saxophone solos, and electronic keyboards. Kim Jong-il hand-picked talented musicians and gave the order to form new bands that could modernize the revolutionary sound without diluting the message. In 1983, the regime established the Wangjae-san Light Music Band, named after Mount Wangjae-san, a historic site where Kim Il-sung was said to have led partisan fighters. This music ensemble became one of Pyongyang's first outlets for something vaguely resembling pop culture. A few years later, a sister group called the Pochonbo Electronic Ensemble was created, named after the Battle of Pochonbo, another legendary Kim Il-sung guerrilla victory. These groups were essentially the vanguard of Kim Jong-il's musical experiment. So what exactly did light music sound like? Imagine a strange time warp when 1950s Soviet big band music meets 1980s Japanese synth-pop. The Wangjae-san band would play an upbeat jazz brass introduction, then launch into a cheerful march tune with synthesizer accents, electric guitar riffs, and occasional disco-esque drum beats. Over this peppy music, dutiful vocalists, often young women with powerful and penetrating voices, would sing lyrics like, "Glory to our general," or "We follow you forever." It was catchy, patriotic music, toe-tapping rhythms wrapped around messages of socialist loyalty. Kim Jong-il was likely influenced by the idle aesthetics of Japanese pop and the melodic hooks of European electronic music. He allowed elements of those styles, as long as the soul of the song remained North Korean and socialist. Everything about these bands signaled a controlled kind of progress. You'd hear a wah-wah guitar or a funky bass line, even a sultry saxophone solo. But moments later, the chorus would swell with praises of the Workers' Party. It was all carefully choreographed modernity. The Wangjae-san Light Music Band quickly became a fixture on state television and radio in the 1980s. Often, after the evening news's dreary report on collective farm output, a Wangjae-san music video might play, showing traditionally dressed singers in elegant gowns performing in front of an orchestra. While lighter in tone than revolutionary operas, these songs were still heavy with ideological content. Many song titles left no doubt about their purpose, like "The General Uses Warp" and "Glory to Comrade Kim Jong-il." What's remarkable is how thoroughly managed these performers were. Members of the Wangjae-san band were drawn from elite institutions like the Pyongyang University of Music and Dance, vetted not only for musical talent, but for ideological purity and personal loyalty. They even had an accompanying dance troupe to perform elaborate, choreographed numbers alongside the music. Some of the most avant-garde dance shows North Korea had seen, complete with flashy outfits and synchronized moves that hinted at a sanitized version of pop idol choreography. For North Korean audiences, deprived of any genuine Western rock or pop, this was as close as entertainment got to feeling modern and fun.
내 젊은 시절 추억도 많은 사진첩을 펼칠 때면 전하의 그날.
While Wang Jae-san carried the torch for jazzy, danceable propaganda, the Pochonbo Electronic Ensemble took things even further into the musica electronica. Pochonbo was North Korea's first true electronic pop group. Their setup featured synthesizers, drum machines, and electric guitars backing a troupe of singers. Its music had a distinct 1980s synth-pop vibe, arguably even more influenced by foreign trends, yet the messaging remained strictly about socialism and loyalty. They became wildly popular in the Kimdom, by some accounts the country's most beloved music group of the late 80s. Part of their appeal was sheer volume. From their formation through the early 2000s, the Pochonbo electronic ensemble released 182 official albums. Yes, you heard that right. That averages out to almost an album every 2 months. This breakneck pace of production was very much in line with North Korea's self-promoted Juche speed, an ethos that anything can be achieved at lightning speed under the wise leadership of the Kims. In truth, Pochonbo could crank out so much music partly because many albums were just funky electronic rearrangements of older revolutionary songs and folk tunes. They even covered a few foreign hits, like the Euro disco classic Brother Louie and the pop song One Way Ticket. Think about those Western tunes, but with Korean lyrics about socialism and plenty of synthesizer arpeggios, and you get the idea. At Pochonbo's peak, their songs were in constant rotation everywhere in Pyongyang. A visitor to Pyongyang in the 1990s would hear these synthetic anthems as the soundtrack of daily life, whether in a department store or at a sports rally. By incorporating catchy melodies, the regime ensured that propaganda wasn't just something people were forced to listen to. It was something they might even find themselves unconsciously humming along to. North Korea had weaponized earworms. And in a rare outing, the Pochonbo ensemble even toured abroad. In 1991, they traveled to Japan to perform for ethnic pro-North Korean communities there, a cultural exchange that demonstrated the regime's pride in its musical exports. While light music groups modernized the sound of North Korean propaganda, they did not signal any loosening of control. If anything, Kim Jong-il's era tightened the bolts on what was permissible. He famously decreed that art must always be mass-oriented and serve the revolution. In practice, this meant even when a song had a pop beat, it ultimately functioned as a sing-along propaganda song. Kim Jong-il himself supervised the production of some songs and performances, ensuring they met his vision of socialist realism in music. One song from the 1980s became his personal anthem and signature tune, No Motherland Without You. This emotional, marching love ballad to Kim Jong-il played incessantly on state media, especially in the 90s. At important party meetings or events, it became tradition to start proceedings with Song of General Kim Il-sung for the father and end with No Motherland Without You as the finale for the song. Imagine a political conference that begins with one generation's theme song and ends with the sequel, a literal musical succession plan. It's worth noting that even as North Korea's music took on elements of foreign style, actual foreign songs or independent pop culture was strictly banned. Foreign pop hits were labelled rotten, capitalist, or reactionary influences, meant to corrupt the masses. Kim Jong-il's regime had a favourite catchphrase for such things: malign foreign culture. A Beatles tune or a Michael Jackson music video, if smuggled in, was considered ideologically toxic. Thus, North Korea's own state-produced pop was popular largely because it was the only music available. It's a bit like oxygen in a sealed room, the only thing to breathe. Bands like Wang Jesan and Pochonbo didn't have to climb any charts. The charts were written with them already at the top by default. Kim Jong-il's cultural experiment was not without its dark side either. The very absolute control that created these bands could also destroy them on a whim. Decades later, Kim Jong-il aged and his light music ensembles quietly waned in prominence, especially as new girl groups gradually emerged. Rumors swirled about internal purges, and some of those rumors turned out to be deadly serious. In August 2013, a South Korean news outlet reported a shocking story. Allegedly, several members of North Korea's Unhasu Orchestra and the Wangjaesan Light Music Band were executed by firing squad on Kim Jong-un's orders, as punishment for immorality. The accusations were different depending on the source, but basically about making obscene videos and possessing Bibles. One rumor suggested that Kim Jong-un was eliminating people linked to his wife Ri Sol-ju's past, because the First Lady Ri Sol-ju was once a former singer in various state music bands. The reports claimed that members of the Wangjaesan art troupe were forced to watch their colleague's execution as a lesson in loyalty. True or not, the Wangjaesan Light Music Band soon vanished from the public stage, apparently disbanded in disgrace. Back then, Kim Jong-un was busy reshaping the musical landscape once again. He formed the Moranbong Band and the Chongbong Band as the state's new pop supergroups, reportedly by pulling some of the best musicians from the old Wangjaesan troupe. The message was clear. The young supreme leader would have his own musical vanguard, composed of loyal talents he handpicked, to sing his praises and continue the tradition of packaged propaganda pop. Propaganda music in North Korea isn't just performed by professionals on grand stages. It penetrates every level of society, from kindergarten classrooms to military barracks. And besides the Kim pop, let's examine some other genres of the DPRK music universe. It might be counterintuitive, but two of the most ubiquitous forms of state music are children's songs and military marches, respectively targeting the minds of the young and the morale of the armed forces. In the Kimdom, music is an all-encompassing indoctrination tool that starts early and never lets up. From the moment North Korean children can carry a tune, they are taught revolutionary nursery rhymes and loyalty anthems. School choirs and the children's union ensembles frequently perform pieces with titles like "We Have Nothing to Envy in the World," "The March of the Young Pioneers," "Our Father, Kim Jong-un," and "We Cannot Live Without You, Father." Imagine a group of 5-year-olds belting out a choral song that praises the leader as their loving parent and vows to uphold socialism. Cute in a way, yet deeply political. These songs are performed at school ceremonies, Children's Day celebrations, and even at somber events like memorials for fallen revolutionaries. The purpose isn't to entertain the kids, but to inculcate devotion. According to the North Korean state's philosophy, Ideological education must begin before a child's baby teeth have even fallen out. By setting the leader's name and party slogans to a simple melody, they ensure that the first songs a child cherishes are essentially hymns to the regime. It's common for young students to compete in singing contests, where every song choice is a patriotic one. Parallel to this is the world of military music, which in North Korea is as pervasive as the military itself. The Korean People's Army maintains numerous military bands and choirs, and they are anything but an afterthought. In a system where the military and the party are deeply intertwined, even soldiers are expected to be performers on command. Musical soldiers in service of Juche. Full-time military ensembles perform at parades, stadium rallies, and yes, even missile launch events. Those massive military parades you see on TV, with rows of tanks and goose-stepping troops in Kim Il-sung Square, always feature stirring martial music blaring from loudspeakers, or played live by a military orchestra in full dress uniform. The brass section will be blasting triumphal tunes as rocket launchers roll by. It's both intimidating and oddly theatrical. Some of the most recognizable North Korean military songs have titles like Long Live Generalissimo Kim Il-sung, Victorious March, or Our Comrade Kim Jong-un, leaving no doubt to whom the military's loyalty and lyrics are directed. These martial songs are not just for show, they're meant to forge unity and fighting spirit. During training exercises or national ceremonies, soldiers might break into a chorus about defending the motherland or avenging American imperialists. Even at remote bases, the morning bugle call might be a recorded patriotic song broadcast to wake the troops. The combination of uniforms and music extends to performance troops composed of soldier artists. That's right, the Kimdom actually has military divisions whose sole job is to produce music and dance that glorify the army and the leadership. The idea of Juche proposes no contradiction between canon and canon. Art and warfare both serve the revolution. Together, the indoctrinating children's songs and the rousing military anthems ensure that from childhood through adulthood, a North Korean citizen's life is scored to the same theme: unquestioning loyalty. By the time those children grow up and perhaps don a uniform, the tunes of obedience are second nature. Music is effectively weaponized to nurture the correct revolutionary consciousness in the nursery and to bolster the courage of the soldier on the front line. Considering how tightly the regime controls its own music, it's no surprise that foreign music is treated like a dangerous virus in North Korea. The Kims have always feared the seductive power of foreign culture, and pop music is seen as one of the most seductive of all. You know, a catchy song from the wrong source can carry subversive messages of individualism, romance, or even critique. During the Cold War, listening to Radio Free Asia or a South Korean pop broadcast could land a North Korean in serious trouble. Jazz and rock were denounced as decadent capitalist music. The Beatles? Agents of Western bourgeois corruption. Michael Jackson or Madonna? Moral degenerates sent to poison Korean youth. Officially, anything beyond a tightly curated list of revolutionary or folk songs was blacklisted. And the punishment for indulging in banned music was severe. Being caught with a bootleg tape of a foreign band could result in weeks of re-education, which might mean forced labor or even forced disappearance. Illicit cassette tapes and CDs did circulate in underground markets, especially in the 1990s, during North Korea's famine years, when the state's grip loosened slightly. But the risks were always high. There's a darkly humorous saying that in North Korea, if you're humming a tune on the street, it better be about the leader or about tractors increasing farm output. If someone recognizes that's Hey Jude or Like a Virgin and reports it, two of you would end up in a labor camp together. The influx of South Korean K-pop in more recent years has been perhaps the greatest cultural threat North Korea has faced. Starting in the 2000s, South Korea's vibrant pop culture, K-drama, girl groups, etc., began to seep into the North through USB drives, SD cards, and even cross-border balloon drops orchestrated by activists. North Korean youths, especially near the Chinese border or in Pyongyang's more privileged circles, managed to get their hands on these forbidden fruits. They secretly watched K-pop music videos, learned the trendy dances, and listened to the infectious beats of BTS, Girls' Generation, or even Blackpink, all in utmost secrecy behind closed doors. This Korean wave from the south, known as Hallyu, alarmed the North Korean leadership to no end. Here were slickly produced glamorous images of Koreans singing about love and personal feelings, flaunting fashion and wealth, projecting a lifestyle utterly at odds with the North Korean frugal society. Even worse, those songs were catchy. No amount of revolutionary operas could compete with the addictive hook of a K-pop chorus among teens. Kim Jong-un, upon inheriting the regime, became keenly aware of this cultural invasion. Initially, his approach had a twin strategy: clamp down ruthlessly on contraband media and simultaneously offer a controlled domestic alternative to channel the youth's pop cravings. On the crackdown front, things took a draconian turn. In December 2020, North Korea introduced the Law on the Elimination of Reactionary Thought and Culture. This law explicitly targets foreign media and influences, imposing harsh penalties on anyone caught importing, distributing, or consuming banned content. The punishments include lengthy prison terms in labor camps and, in extreme cases, even the death penalty. This is no idle threat. Numerous reports from defectors and South Korean intelligence indicate that people have been executed for the crime of watching or smuggling South Korean pop medleys. From one chilling case in 2022, a 20-plus-year-old young man was reportedly publicly executed by firing squad for the simple act of sharing South Korean pop songs and dramas with his friends. The regime clearly intends these horrifying examples to scare others straight. Look what happens if you sing along to foreign songs. You could pay with your life. Even less dramatic violations can completely ruin your life. There are stories of teenagers sent to re-education camps because a South Korean song was found on their phone. Or families punished because a neighbor snitched about them humming a southern melody. To enforce this, the state relies on neighborhood watch units and surprise inspections. a modern version of witch hunts for USB sticks and memory cards. The narrative is that listening to a love song from Seoul could make a citizen disloyal or spark an erosion of revolutionary zeal. While the stick of punishment is one side of Kim Jong-un's cultural policy, the other side is the carrot, creating a domestic pop culture that is glitzy and exciting enough to keep citizens entertained and indoctrinated, so they won't seek out foreign entertainment. Shortly after coming to power, the young leader, who had a secret childhood in Switzerland and was deeply exposed to Western culture, made bold moves to update North Korea's cultural repertoire. If South Korea has its flashy idol groups and electrifying concerts, North Korea would have its own state-approved version, equally flashy on the surface, but with revolutionary hearts as its core. The most famous product of this initiative is the Moranbong Band. Unveiled in July 2012, just months into Kim Jong-un's rule, the Moranbong Band is an all-female ensemble that took North Korea by storm. This group was reportedly hand-picked and named by Kim Jong-un himself. The women of Moranbong were young, attractive, and skillful in various instruments, a shocking departure from the older performers of generations ago. They took to the stage in short miniskirts and stylish military-style jackets, high heels and electric guitars in hand, presenting a polished image reminiscent of a K-pop girl group. This is the Kim pop that our Western audience is more familiar with. For North Koreans who had never seen anything like Girls' Generation or the Spice Girls, Moranbong was a revelation. Strobe lights, fog machines, and LED screens appeared in their concerts. State-of-the-art stage effects that dazzled audiences used to static microphones and simple backdrops. In one early Moranbong performance, Disney characters like Mickey and Minnie Mouse even made a bizarre cameo, dancing on stage to a medley of Disney songs played by the band. What a jaw-dropping sight in a country that attacks Americans as evil imperialists. This was a calculated signal from Kim Jong-un. Look, we have our own socialist fun. Musically, Moranbong Band mixes a variety of genres: electronic dance beats, rock guitar solos, Daddy Kim's light music, and loyal orchestra praising the younger Kim. Their songs have seamlessly transitioned from gentle violin-led ballads to synth-driven pop melodies with choreographed dance moves. But make no mistake, the lyrics remain pure propaganda. Their set lists include titles like "My Country is the Best," "We Call Him Father," "Glory to General Kim Jong-un," and "Song of Hwasong Artillery." Yes, they literally have upbeat pop-rock songs praising ballistic missiles and the nuclear arsenal, complete with music videos showing missiles launching in the background as the women perform. It's as if Top of the Pops met a military parade. One minute you're tapping your foot to a catchy melody. The next you realize the chorus is extolling the range and might of a Hwasong 15 ICBM. The Moranbong Band quickly became the darlings of the North Korean public. Their concerts in Pyongyang, attended by elites and sometimes open to selected foreign journalists, were major events. Kim Jong-un himself has attended and reportedly is quite proud of them. State media shows him grinning in the audience, applauding his rock star propagandists. By giving North Koreans something shiny and attractive, Moranbong was essentially Kim Jong-un's answer to K-pop. Similar packaging and hot girl super idol aesthetics, but with a socialist core. And to a degree, it worked. Young people had new entertainers to idolize, ones that the state actively promoted rather than punished. Moranbong's success led to the creation of other modern musical acts as well. The Chongbong Band, formed around 2015 as mentioned earlier, is like a sister group, also female-led, that leans a bit more into traditional instruments mixed with modern ones. There is also the Unhasu Orchestra, which in Kim Jong-il's later years and briefly under Kim Jong-un, specialized in more classical but still modern repertoire, though it got entangled in that earlier purge scandal and was quietly dissolved. Kim Jong-un also sometimes showcases harmonica ensembles, accordions, and guitar bands composed of youth to give an image that the arts are flourishing, even if all are under tight control. In 2018, North Korea even sent an artistic delegation to the south during a period of diplomacy, which included the Samjeon Orchestra, led by Hyun Song-wol. Another international victory for the best Korea's music outputs. However, even as he promotes these glossy acts, Kim Jong-un hasn't loosened the ideological control. Performers must stick to approved lines. The presentation can be sexy by North Korean standards, but the performative freedom goes only so far. A member of Moranbong is not going to break out into an impromptu love ballad or a critique of life in Pyongyang. Every dance step and every lyric remains scripted by propaganda officials. The moment any cultural product stops serving its purpose, it will be cancelled, or worse. In fact, in late 2015, the Moranbong Band was on a much publicized trip to perform in Beijing as a goodwill gesture. But they mysteriously packed up and returned home before the concert. Reportedly, because Chinese officials took issue with the overtly militaristic content of their show, which included those missile launch videos. The North Korean side refused to tone down the propaganda even on foreign soil, so Beijing cancelled this highly anticipated show. Kim Jong-un's cultural strategy is simple. Allow just enough glitz and modern flavour to keep people entertained domestically, but not a shred of ideological dissent or unsanctioned influence. The state can throw resources into its own pop bands, but they can't create an isolated bubble forever, especially as more North Koreans subtly come to know what they're missing. This is why the regime doubles down on fear-making examples of offenders, while simultaneously blasting patriotic K-pop style songs on every corner. In North Korea, music carries a weight that is hard to imagine elsewhere. For the Kim dynasty, songs are not mere background noise or disposable pop fluff. They are as important as factory output or military drills in shaping the nation. Every grand opera, every electronic jam, every child's choir performance, and every girl group concert is a carefully composed piece of a larger symphony. A symphony of state power and ideological control. Looking back at this very strange musical universe, there is a clear evolutionary trajectory. Under Kim Il-sung, music laid the revolutionary roots, epic operas and guerrilla anthems, forging a new nation's identity. Under Kim Jong-il, Music was weaponized further with light music and modern ensembles, an attempt to refresh the propaganda for new generations while cementing his own cult of personality. Finally, under our supreme leader Kim Jong-un, music has become both a defensive wall and an aggressive lure. Defensive against foreign influence, and aggressive by creating indigenous pop culture that appeals to the people in a controlled manner. For outsiders, North Korea's music can seem comical or absurd. After all, where else do girl bands sing sincerely about the glory of tractor factories or the latest missile test? It's easy to chuckle at the over-the-top propaganda lyrics or the retro charm of those synthesizer songs. But it's also important to recognize the serious purpose this all serves. When tens of thousands of people sing in unison about their eternal love for the leader, it's not just a song, but a display of political theatre and a ritual of loyalty. When a soldier band plays a rousing march, it's not just to entertain troops, but to prepare them mentally to fight with fervour. And when children learn a melody praising Kim Jong-un before they learn the alphabet, it's not just cute, but grooming the next generation to maintain the system. In the Kimdom, music is woven into power. The regime's control is amplified through amplifiers, its ideology transmitted on radio waves and in concert halls. North Korea has, in effect, its own unique genre of music. One might call it Juche pop or Kim pop. It's a genre where the chart toppers are predetermined by the party, where the concept of a rebellious underground band is non-existent, and where every love song is required to be a love for the motherland or the leader. And for those wondering how a Slovenian industrial rock band ended up singing for the model citizens in Pyongyang, don't worry. Lieback and the great mystery of North Korean rock will be the subject of a future episode. Sounds good? As we finish our exploration of this musical landscape, one thing is certain. North Korea's soundtrack is inseparable from its history and ruling ideology. It's the soundtrack of a nation perpetually at war and revolution. And so the band plays on, whether on an opera stage, or an electronic keyboard, or a parade ground, ensuring that the melody of loyalty never fades. In Pyongyang, the music never ends. It just occasionally changes arrangement, always in tune with the ruling note. And that final note, held steadfast through decades, is one of unwavering propaganda, in perfect harmony with the power of the Kim dynasty.